We're now going to take a look at comparison operators in PHP, and again a very basic overview of comparison operators and comparison operators that are most used. We've already looked at equals and identicals, so we're checking if something is equal, i.e. 0 does equal false, but 0 with an identical comparison operator will not equal false, because 0 and false are both different values. So 0 and false have different data types. So this is an integer, this is a boolean. So therefore, using the three equal signs, so the identical comparison operator, this will not evaluate to true. But what we're going to do now is just look at a couple, so greater than, less than, equal to, things that we'd find in other languages. So there's not really much to talk about here, but let's go ahead and apply a name here, and we'll also include an age, and this will be an integer. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to look at them, basically list top down, and see what they do. So in this case, I'm going to say is name equal to Alex. In this case, we'll just echo out true. So obviously this is going to be true, so we will see the value true output in our browser. We can also use the identical check to check if this is an identical match. So for example, does this equal Alex, and is it a string as well? If we were to do something like if age equals 24 with a double equals, now this looks a little strange because what we've got here is we've got an integer here, then a string here, but this does actually evaluate to true because we're not using type checking, and this is identical to this. So not identical, sorry, this is equal to this. So when we refresh, we get the value true back. So this is one of the things you need to be really careful with, because when you are making a comparison between two or more variables, you actually need to be really careful with type checking. If type checking is absolutely necessary, then you need to go ahead and include it. It's often best practice to always use identical, just simply because if something slips up, you could make a terrible mistake based on the fact that you didn't want an expression to evaluate to true. Now we can also use not equal. In actual fact, let's just demonstrate this with a comparison operator, and we'll also include the ability to output false as well. And when we refresh here, we obviously see false because this doesn't actually equal, or it's not identical to it. However, if we were to change this to an integer, then of course when we refresh it's true. We could of course as well say something like age equals string 24, which we wouldn't usually see, but it just demonstrates that this is now truthy because we've typecast this to a string. Anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at something like not equal. And basically all this does is it will check if it's not equal to it. So let's take a guess at what this might be. We've got an integer here, we're checking if this is not equal. So when we go ahead and refresh, we see that we get a false value back. And the reason for this is the fact that we're checking if age, which is an integer, doesn't equal 24. In this case it says false. If we were to use type checking again, we would see that this is true, simply because it's a string and this is an integer and we're using type checking. So we also have things like greater than and less than. So let's go ahead and work with the age in this case again. We'll just say if age is greater than 30, then we want to go ahead and say true. This is false because the age is 24. If we were to set the age to 50, we would see the value true. Now what we can also do is check if it's greater than or equal to. So we can say greater than and just use an equal sign. So greater than or equal to 30. So in this case, if I was to say 30, we will see true. Whereas if we were using just greater than, 30 unfortunately isn't equal to 30. It's the same value. So in this case, with taking the equal sign away, we don't get the same result. And of course, we can also use the less than or equal to as well. So we also have different caveats, like we've already looked at not equal, but we can also use this as not equal as well. And this is basically exactly the same, so it works in exactly the same way. So if age, which is 30, is not equal to 30, so is 30 equal to 30? It is, so we get false here because this evaluates to false. We can also say 31 now. These don't evaluate to this doesn't evaluate to true, so we will see true here. And I guess this is one of the things that when you explain it, it seems very very basic and silly, but in actual fact what's going on here is that this is functionality that you'd use without any through any application basically, and it's it's one of them things that you just get used to. But definitely with type checking, it's important to understand that when you are working with data, type checking will be extremely useful, just to avoid any slips along the way.